Open almost any modern English Bible, and the Book of Enoch is not there. Open the scriptural tradition of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, and Enoch is received as scripture. That contrast has produced a powerful story. The book was once in the Bible, church authorities removed it, and Ethiopia alone kept the forbidden text alive. The first part of that story points to something real. Enoch is absent from most later Jewish and Christian biblical collections. It did survive completely in Guizi, and it remains within a living Ethiopian Christian canon. But the second part assumes a history the evidence does not give us. It assumes there was one universal Bible, one authority controlling it, and one moment when Enoch was taken out. So the investigation begins with a different question. Not simply, who removed Enoch? But, which communities copied it, which communities used it, which communities received it as scripture, and which did not? The surviving evidence gives us three strong paths into that question. In the caves near Qumran, 11 fragmentary Aramaic manuscript copies preserve parts of Enochic works. In the New Testament letter of Jude, a passage closely corresponds to language in 1 Enoch. And in the Guizi tradition of Ethiopian Christianity, the complete received collection survived. Those facts are not rumors. They are the reason the removal story feels plausible. Yet each fact answers a different question. A manuscript proves that a text was copied. A quotation proves that a text was known or used. A community's canon tells us how that community received the work. None of those facts, by itself, proves that every community once shared the same canon. Within the first few minutes, the mystery changes. The evidence does not lead toward one hidden decree. It leads toward several histories moving apart. That distinction matters because the word Bible can sound more uniform than history was. A canon is a community's received collection of books regarded as scripture. But Jewish and Christian communities did not all inherit one timeless table of contents. They lived in different languages, read in different liturgical settings, copied different texts, and formed judgments about authority across long periods of time. This does not mean that boundaries were imaginary. Communities included some writings and did not include others. Some texts remained central. Some became marginal. Some stopped being copied. Real exclusion and real loss could occur. What the evidence does not establish is one universal act of deletion from one universal Bible. To see why, we first have to identify the object that supposedly disappeared. The Enoch of Genesis appears only briefly. He belongs to the generations before the flood. Genesis says little about him, but the few lines are unusual enough to invite expansion. Later Enochic writings build a much larger world around that ancient figure. Heavenly journeys, judgment, rebellious angels, visions of history, calendars, and revelations about the structure of the cosmos. But the Book of Enoch is not a precise title unless we specify which work we mean. At least 3 distinct writings are commonly called 1 Enoch, 2 Enoch, and 3 Enoch. They are not 3 editions of one book. They are different works, preserved in different languages and traditions. This documentary is about 1 Enoch, sometimes called Ethiopic Enoch because its complete received form survives in Guizi. That name describes its preservation. It does not mean the collection was originally composed in Ethiopia or in Guizi. Even 1 Enoch is not one work written at one moment. It is a composite collection formed from several major Enochic works. The received collection includes material conventionally known as the Book of Watchers, the Parables or Similitudes, the Astronomical Book, the Dream Visions, and the Epistle of Enoch. Specialists debate the dates and settings of particular sections, especially the parables. But the larger point is secure enough for this investigation. What later readers encounter as 1 Enoch has a layered history. That changes the question of survival. We should not imagine a single finished volume leaving the hand of the biblical Enoch and then moving unchanged through every century. We are following a collection assembled over time, copied in parts, translated across languages, and received differently by different communities. Scholars often discuss works attributed to ancient figures under the category pseudepigraphal. Here, the useful point is limited. The name of Enoch carries the authority of a revered ancestral figure, while the collection itself developed much later and in several parts. This composite character does not make the writings unimportant. It makes the manuscript evidence more revealing. By the Second Temple period, Enochic writings were circulating in Jewish settings. That is not an inference from medieval legend. It is written into surviving Aramaic manuscripts. The setting matters. Ancient Jewish literature was not divided neatly into the categories used by every later religious community. A text could be copied, studied, interpreted, and treated with great seriousness without leaving behind a modern-style declaration that says, "This book belongs in a closed canon." So when the physical evidence appears, it will answer one question decisively. Enochic works were ancient and circulating. It will leave another question open. What kind of authority did they carry, and for whom? The strongest material evidence comes from Qumran Cave 4. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls are 11 Aramaic manuscript copies of Enochic booklets. The number 11 needs careful handling. It does not mean 11 loose fragments. It means 11 distinct manuscript witnesses, each surviving in fragmentary remains. Together, those witnesses preserve portions connected with 4 major component groups represented in the later received collection: the Book of Watchers, the Astronomical Book, the Dream Visions, and the Epistle of Enoch. No single Qumran manuscript contains the complete, received one Enoch. The cave did not yield a finished Guizi-style collection in Aramaic. What it yielded was something both more limited and more historically powerful: multiple ancient copies of several Enochic works. That evidence establishes antiquity, copying, circulation, and textual plurality. The writings were not a medieval Ethiopian invention. They were already present in Jewish literary worlds long before the surviving complete Ethiopic manuscripts. 11 copies also suggest importance. It would be unreasonable to treat repeated copying as meaningless. But importance is not the same category as universal canon. The Qumran library contains many kinds of texts. The presence of a work in the caves does not function like a later printed table of contents. Scholars therefore debate how to describe the authority of Enochic writings at Qumran. Some emphasize the number of copies and the way Enochic ideas connect with the community's intellectual world. Others argue that the evidence proves use and importance but cannot define a formal scriptural status in a modern sense. The responsible conclusion keeps both points. Enochic writings mattered at Qumran, and the manuscripts alone do not tell us how every Jewish community classified them. This is where a popular claim becomes too large for its evidence. The Book of Enoch was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls can be a useful shorthand, but it easily creates the image of one complete book recovered from a cave. That is not what survives. What survives are fragmentary Aramaic manuscript copies of several Enochic components. Their value is not diminished by precision. In fact, precision reveals more. The manuscripts show that the collection preserved later in Guizi has deep roots in older Jewish literature. They show that several component works existed in ancient Aramaic forms. They show that scribes copied them more than once. They do not identify an original author. They do not prove the narratives happened historically. And they do not provide a universal Jewish canon list. The physical object changes the range of possible histories. It does not settle every argument attached to the word Bible. That leaves an obvious objection. Manuscripts may prove circulation without proving canon. But what about the New Testament? The letter of Jude does not merely share a broad theme with Enochic tradition. Jude 14 and 15 use language closely corresponding to 1 Enoch 1:9. For many viewers, This feels like the decisive moment. A canonical New Testament writing receives Enochic material and presents it with force. Surely that must settle the status of the entire book. It settles something important. It proves that Enochic tradition entered an early Christian text at a significant point. But it still does not answer every canonical question at once. To understand Jude, separate the questions. First, is there a real literary relationship? Yes. The correspondence is direct and recognizable. Second, does Jude's use tell us that Enochic material was known and could carry authority in an early Christian setting? Yes. It is serious evidence of reception. Third, does that use automatically declare every section of the later 5-part collection canonical for every Christian community? No, that conclusion is larger than the evidence. Ancient and biblical writers can use material without issuing a ruling on the status of an entire source collection. The issue is not whether Jude's use is real. The issue is what scope that use can bear. Quotation, adaptation, and allusion are forms of reception. Canon is a community-level judgment about a received scriptural collection. Those categories can overlap, but they are not identical. This distinction can sound like academic caution designed to avoid a clear answer. But without it, the same evidence is forced to prove contradictory things. One community may preserve a text as scripture. Another may quote it as useful tradition. Another may know it but question its provenance. Another may stop copying it altogether. The text can be influential in all 4 situations, but its canonical position is not the same. Jude therefore raises the stakes rather than closing the investigation. The question is no longer whether early Christians knew Enochic tradition. At least some did. The new question is why later Christian judgments were so different. 2 early Christian writers make that diversity visible. Tertullian knew objections to Enoch and defended the work. His argument shows that the text had advocates and that its standing was already contested. Augustine, writing in a different Latin Christian context, denied canonical authority to writings circulating under Enoch's name. His position shows real boundary setting, not mere accidental forgetfulness. Neither writer can stand for every Christian community. Tertullian does not prove universal acceptance. Augustine does not prove a universal ban. Together, they are more valuable than either one used alone. They show that the early church was not one voice speaking one verdict at one moment. Reception was diverse before later canonical collections became familiar to modern readers. This is also where the word removed needs its strongest correction. Real people did make judgments. A text could be rejected as non-canonical in one setting, defended in another, and gradually disappear from copying networks elsewhere. That is not nothing happened, but a local judgment is not automatically a universal decree. A writer's objection is not a council ruling for every church. A later list is not proof that every earlier community once possessed the same larger list. The evidence is better described as divergence, different lines of reception, some narrowing and some continuing. To understand how those lines became physically different, we have to follow the languages in which the text survived. Outside Aramaic, Enochic material also survived in Greek, and a smaller portion survived in Latin. These witnesses matter because they show that the text moved beyond its earlier Aramaic setting and entered other literary worlds. But the Greek and Latin transmission is partial. Neither preserves the complete received collection. The full collection known to modern scholarship survived in Guizi, the classical literary language of Ethiopian Christianity. That is a major historical fact. Without the Guizi tradition, modern access to 1 Enoch would be far more fragmentary. Greek portions and Aramaic fragments would preserve important pieces, but not the complete received form. Guizi preservation, therefore, changes the scale of the evidence. It gives us a complete collection where other surviving language traditions give us parts. Yet complete must be defined. It means that the received collection survives, through Guizi transmission. It does not mean that the Guizi manuscripts are the original autographs. It does not mean every earlier textual form was identical. And it does not mean the collection was composed in Guizi. The Aramaic witnesses are earlier evidence for several component works. Greek witnesses preserve additional parts. Guizi preserves the complete received collection. These are connected chapters in the history of a text, but they are not one unbroken chain of physical manuscripts. No inspected evidence establishes that the scrolls from Qumran traveled directly to Ethiopia. The route and precise source language path of the Ethiopic translation remain uncertain. So the map must contain a gap. The gap is not a failure of the documentary. It is part of the historical truth. This also answers a reasonable objection. Why trust later complete Guizi manuscripts if the physical Aramaic copies are so much earlier? Because the evidence streams can be compared without pretending they are identical. The earlier Aramaic fragments confirm the antiquity of multiple Enochic works. Greek witnesses show additional transmission. The Guizi tradition preserves the full received collection. Similarity and difference across these witnesses allow specialists to study the history of the text. The later date of surviving complete manuscripts does not turn the collection into a late invention. At the same time, the existence of early fragments does not prove that the later complete form existed in exactly the same arrangement at Qumran. The responsible picture is neither blind trust nor automatic suspicion. It is layered transmission. But preservation is not only a manuscript accident. Texts survive because communities keep reading, copying, translating, teaching, and valuing them. That brings the investigation from the language Guizi to the living tradition that carried it. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church does not present Enoch as a curiosity recovered by modern scholars. It receives Enoch within its scriptural canon. This is the point where the story most often becomes exotic, a secret Ethiopian Bible hidden far from the Christian world. That framing is historically careless and disrespectful. Ethiopian Christianity is not a vault outside Christian history. It is a living Christian tradition with its own inherited scriptural life. Enoch survived there not as contraband, but as scripture. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church explicitly includes Enoch among its Old Testament books. Its self-description commonly speaks of an 81-book canon, but even that number needs context. Scholars of Ethiopian canon caution that broader and narrower collections, counting methods, manuscript practice, and the category of a single fixed list do not map perfectly onto a modern Western printed Bible model. The secure statement is not that every Ethiopian edition has one identical arrangement. It is that Enoch belongs within the Church's received scriptural tradition. That distinction protects the central fact from a misleading simplification. The tradition's complexity does not erase Enoch's canonical status. And Enoch's status does not authorize claims that Ethiopia possesses the only true, oldest, or universally complete Bible. Why did this tradition preserve the book when others did not? The evidence supports an answer, but not a single dramatic cause. The complete collection survived where it continued to be copied and received within an ecclesial tradition. Translation into Guizi made the work available within that literary and religious world. Continued scriptural use gave communities reasons to preserve it. That does not tell us the exact route by which every part reached Ethiopia. It does not identify one translator, one manuscript, or one moment of arrival. The early history of the translation remains incomplete, but the mechanism of continuity is visible. A canon is not only a list, it is a pattern of use. Books endure when communities hear them, teach them, copy them, and pass them on. This gives the episode's title its real meaning. Enoch is still in one Bible because one continuing Christian tradition received and transmitted it as scripture. The phrase does not mean there is only one Bible in Ethiopia, one uniform edition. or only one historical community ever to value Enoch. It names a surviving canonical path. Most modern readers encounter a different path. Their Bibles descend from Jewish and Christian collections in which one Enoch was not retained as a canonical book. The contrast is not between truth and deception. It is between different histories of reception. The next question is how those different histories became durable. Canon formation is often imagined as a meeting where authorities placed every available book on a table and made one final decision for the entire religious world. The historical record is less centralized. Different communities inherited collections already shaped by language, worship, teaching, controversy, and copying. They evaluated writings within those local histories. Some boundaries became explicit in lists and confessions. Others emerged through long habits of use and non-use. The word apocrypha can also obscure more than it explains. In different traditions, it can refer to different sets of books and carry different judgments. Calling one Enoch apocryphal may tell us how one community classifies it, but it cannot replace a history of how another community receives it. The same is true of canon. It is not merely a neutral label attached to a manuscript. It describes a relationship between a text and a community. Representative modern records make the divergence visible. A current Chabad presentation of the Tanakh does not include one Enoch. The Catholic canon enumerated in the Catechism does not include it. Teaching lists from the Orthodox Church in America do not include it. The Protestant collection defined by the Westminster Confession does not include it. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, by contrast, explicitly includes Enoch. These sources do not tell us every step by which each tradition reached its present collection. They are not interchangeable, and none should be used to speak for every subgroup or every earlier century. What they establish is narrower and decisive. There is no single present biblical table of contents shared by all these communities. Once that is visible, removed from the Bible stops being a complete historical explanation. We have to ask, removed, rejected, or not retained by whom? In which collection, and at what time? Outside Ethiopia, several factors likely worked in different combinations. The complete work did not survive in Greek or Latin. As copying declined, access narrowed. When a text was read less often, fewer copies were made. When fewer copies existed, later communities had fewer opportunities to receive it. Judgments about provenance and authority also mattered. Tertullian's defense shows that objections existed. Augustine's rejection of canonical authority shows that some Christian settings drew a boundary against writings under Enoch's name. Language mattered. Liturgy mattered. Teaching mattered. Existing collections mattered. The relative weight of those causes cannot be calculated for every community from the surviving record. That uncertainty is important. A multi-causal history is not a refusal to answer. It is the answer the evidence can sustain. Could there still have been local prohibitions, deliberate rejection, or lost records? Certainly. The claim that no universal removal event is established is not the claim that nobody ever opposed Enoch. Augustine's position alone shows that real rejection existed in at least one influential context. Other local actions may have left incomplete evidence, but strong accusations of coordinated suppression require positive evidence, an identifiable actor, an action, a target, a time, and a scope. Present absence is not enough. The absence of a universal decree is not enough either. The case rests instead on convergence. We have different ancient judgments, different patterns of manuscript survival, different language histories, and different community canons. Those facts explain the outcome without requiring one secret command. This is why the conspiracy version feels emotionally satisfying but historically unstable. It turns a long, uneven process into a single villain. It treats all Christians as one institution. It treats all Bibles as one object. And it turns every missing manuscript into evidence of intent. The alternative is not less consequential. Communities really did preserve different inheritances. Some readers lost access to a work that others continued to hear as scripture. The complete collection disappeared from dominant Greek and Latin language transmission while remaining alive in Guizi. What changes is the moral claim. Difference does not automatically mean deception. Loss does not automatically mean a coordinated cover-up. And preservation does not automatically make one community the judge of every other community's theology. History can describe the paths. It cannot use those paths to settle every confessional question. We can now return to the original paradox. Was the Book of Enoch ancient? Yes. Aramaic Enochic manuscripts at Qumran established circulation in the Second Temple period. Was the complete book found there? No. 11 fragmentary manuscript copies preserve portions of 4 major component groups, not the complete received collection. Did Jude use Enochic material? Yes. Jude 14 and 15 closely correspond to 1 Enoch 1:9. Did that single use canonize every part of 1 Enoch for every church? The evidence does not support that leap. Did the complete received collection survive? Yes, in Guizi. Does the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church receive Enoch as scripture? Yes. Each answer is strong because it stays within the category the evidence can actually establish. So was Enoch removed from the Bible? In many later Jewish and Christian collections, it was excluded, not retained, or no longer transmitted as a canonical book. Those are real historical outcomes. But the surviving record does not support one universal event in which the Church removed Enoch from one universal Bible. The premise is too simple because the history was never that uniform. A better conclusion is that 1 Enoch followed different paths of copying, translation, use, judgment, and canon. In Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Christianity, that path preserved the complete collection and its scriptural status. In many other Jewish and Christian traditions, the path narrowed, and the book did not become part of the received canon. This conclusion should not be used to dismiss the viewer who asks about removal. The intuition begins with genuine evidence, ancient manuscripts, a New Testament connection, early Christian defenders, and a living canon that still includes the book. Anyone seeing those facts together has a reasonable question. The correction is not that the evidence means nothing. It is that the evidence belongs to several different categories. Manuscript survival is not canon. Quotation is not a universal table of contents decision. A later absence is not automatic proof of suppression. A living Ethiopian canon is not an exotic exception to real Christianity. And the lack of one universal decree does not mean no community ever rejected the work. Once those distinctions are made, the history becomes clearer rather than weaker. It also leaves important questions open. The exact route by which the collection entered Guizi remains uncertain. The dates and settings of some sections remain debated. The authority of Enochic writings at Qumran cannot be reduced to a modern canon label. The precise mechanics of Jude's literary use invite technical discussion beyond what the surviving relationship itself requires. Those uncertainties do not erase the central finding. They define its honest limits. One ancient collection left traces in Aramaic, Greek, Latin, and Guizi. Its parts were copied, quoted, debated, translated, lost in some settings, and preserved in another. No single piece of evidence carries the whole story. The answer appears only when the evidence streams are kept separate and then brought together. The Book of Enoch is still in the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Bible because that tradition continued to receive, use, and transmit it as scripture. It is missing from most other Bibles because those communities inherited different canonical collections, and because Enoch's copying and authority narrowed along other language and ecclesial paths. That history includes preservation. It includes exclusion. It includes manuscript loss and changing judgments. What it does not give us is one universal Bible followed by one universal deletion. The most important survival may therefore be more than the survival of a book. It is the survival of a map, evidence that ancient scriptural worlds did not all move in the same direction, and that the borders of the Bible have always been histories carried by communities.